Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, it is Wingy here and welcome to a brand new video. Now today, it's another Patreon video and it is suggested by Harry Brown. So first and foremost, thank you very much for the suggestion. Follow me on Patreon and I assume on here as well. Now, I have tweaked what you suggested ever so slightly just because it's easier for one video. I will probably come back to this at some point and explore it a bit more in depth like you wanted me to. So the original suggestion was to do the best 10 stories for each of the Doctors. However, for this video, I'm just going to narrow it down to the best story for each Doctor in my opinion. But like I say, I will do top 10s for all the Doctors eventually. It's probably going to end up on the podcast at some point, which is coming very soon. I know people have been asking about it, but it's coming. But anyway, like with any sort of video like this, it is purely my opinion. So with these stories, the way I've sort of judged it is based on how popular these stories are and how much I personally like them. So hopefully everybody's happy, because obviously this is the internet. No one ever gets angry for unnecessary reasons. So starting off with the very first Doctor then, which is William Hartnell, the first Doctor. Personally, I would go with Dalek Invasion of Earth. Now I know that there's a case here for a load of other different stories. I mean, that's pretty much the case with the rest of this list. But the reason why I picked Dalek Invasion of Earth, I mean, I put this on my top 10 of all time list when it came to the classic series. I just really like this story. Personally, I do think that the Cushing movie does sort of take this story and tighten it up somewhat. The Daleks are really chilling in this story. There's that moment where they just surround some guy out of a spaceship and just say kill him, and they do. I mean, it's really simplistic yet so effective. See, this is why I keep saying less is more constantly, all the time. Less is more. And then of course, obviously, you know, there is the whole speech with William Hartnell at the end, which I mean is just beautiful. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's the end where Susan leaves and he's saying goodbye to her. It's absolutely incredible. It's one of the best performances that William Hartnell ever gave in my personal opinion. And for me, it ends one of his best stories. No, his best story in my opinion. Moving to the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, and I shall go with The Invasion. I nearly said The Avengers. Nope, I mean The Invasion. Fuck. The Invasion. Definitely The Invasion. This is just one of my favourite 60s Doctor Who stories in general. I absolutely love it. The weird thing is as well, it's 8 parts, and 60s Doctor Who obviously can be a bit, well, it can drag on. This doesn't at all. At least for me, it doesn't. It's got a great soundtrack. It's one of the stories that I put on my top 10 Doctor Who scores, or whatever amount of episodes was on that. So yeah, the atmosphere is really creepy because of that. You've got the mystery element where you're trying to figure out what this company is actually doing. You've got a great human supporting villain in Tobias Vaughan. Kevin Stoney, man, he's definitely underrated as one of the best, like, one-off Doctor Who villains. This is like the first proper unit story as well. It kind of sets up the third Doctor era. And then of course the Cybermen. You've got them roaming about in the sewers and in front of St. Paul's Cathedral. And like I say, for 8 parts, it's incredibly well paced. I remember my younger self who essentially had ADHD and couldn't focus on anything. I mean, not literally, that's just how it kind of felt. But this kept my interest for all 8 episodes. Somehow. I don't know. I probably struggle to get through it now, to be honest, but my kid self, he loved it. I mean, I still probably do. I'm waffling now, aren't I? I better go on to the third Doctor. So for Jon Pertwee, it's so hard because this era started the golden era of Doctor Who, in my opinion. And I am really struggling. I really wanted to pick a unit story, but I'm gonna have to go with the Sea Devils. Now, apart from unit, this has sort of all the standard things you would expect from a Jon Pertwee story. The Master's in it. The monsters are a bit crap but incredibly charming. Like the Sea Devil design, as much as I like to think it doesn't really hold up, but it's on the verge of being really good that you just have to appreciate it. The music is all weird and wobbly, and you do get those action hero moments from the third Doctor as well. I mean, they call him the James Bond-esque Doctor for a reason, and he proves it in this story. He blows up a fucking minefield with the sonic screwdriver. Like, that's awesome. This is just such a good story from start to finish, and obviously there's some other aspects in it as well. You know, it sort of harks back to the Silurians in the sense that the Sea Devils, they live under the sea. Why can't they have a right to the planet as well? And even though it does retread that ground, it does it, I think, more effectively than how it did it in the Silurians. So yeah, for me, that is the best Pertwee story, but honestly, that was really fucking hard. Going to Tom's era now, and yeah, this is going to be hard as well, isn't it? I've got like so many stories rattling through my brain. I mean, you have to remember, this is my favourite Doctor and my favourite era of the entire show. I really want to mention City of Death. I really want to mention the Talons of Weng-Chiang. I really want to mention The Hand of Fear, but that's just for unpersonal reasons because it's my favourite story ever. I know it's not his best though, so I'm not going to put it on here. I mean, Pyramids of Mars, Terror of the Zygons, the Ark in Space, there's so many, but gotta go with Genesis. Now, when people say that this story is overrated, I totally get it. I really, really do. But you can't deny that it is great. It is truly one of the best Doctor Who stories ever made. It does slow down in the middle, so I will hold that against it. But for the rest of it, it's just brilliant. You've got Michael Wisher as Davros, who is just so good. He actually sells it to you in a way that sounds reasonable, where he's talking with the Doctor in that scene and he's on about releasing the virus. You know that this dude is completely insane, yet you just understand where he's coming from completely. Considering that he's essentially Space Hitler, that's not an easy feat. It's got some great location work, admittedly in just a bog standard quarry, which is kind of standard for Doctor Who, but they really make the most of it, and it has some grim war imagery. And the studio sets as well, they're cold, they're dark, they're calculated, much like the Kaleds that live and work in them. A main gripe that people have with this story is that the Daleks don't really do much, but they don't need to. This is their origin story. It's not really about them, it's what led these people become Daleks. And it's such a dark and harrowing tale and such a desperate time for these people, and it makes sense that by the end of the story, a lot of them, they don't want to become Daleks and they hold a revolt. But obviously they don't win. You know that they don't win. It is very predictable in that sense, as we know that the Daleks are going to come. But to just see how it happens, it's really well handled. Moving on to the 5th Doctor with Peter Davison, and again it's tough. There's a couple stories here that you could mention. It pains me to do this, but the honourable mention is Earthshock, but the story I'm actually going to pick is going to be The Caves of Androzani. Again, you could argue that this story is overrated. This story isn't perfect in any way, shape or form. There are definitely parts of this where I'm just like, ooh, no. I'm mostly referring to the weird armadillo dragon thing, which looks like somebody made it out of polystyrene and cereal boxes and a little bit of paint. But you can't hold that against this story because one, it's only a small part of the story, and two, the actual story itself and the way that it's written, that's what drives this story forward. It's so dark, and it's one of those stories where if the Doctor wasn't there, nothing would have changed. That's what I love about stories like this, and I think Doctor Who needs to take more risks like this. Some people could argue, well, it's pointless then because the Doctor had no impact. The Doctor doesn't need necessarily an impact on the situation. The situation sometimes needs an impact on the Doctor and his companion. And in this case, it triggered a regeneration. This entire story is a lose-lose situation, and I love seeing that. I love seeing the Doctor more vulnerable. So hopefully in Series 11 we get more stories like that. It's something I've been crying out for years. 6th Doctor, and I shall say, oh, I'm torn between two again. Probably gonna go Vengeance on Varos, just because I would have said 2 Doctors for me personally, but I think based on fan reception, I have to take that into account, so it's gotta be Varos. This again is such a dark story. Now in this period of Doctor Who, there was a lot of violence, and you definitely get that in here. You know, there's a hanging scene, there's acid baths, there's people being mutated, but it just shows you how far people and governments will go. It certainly shows you how easy it can be to manipulate a government, and I suppose it does as well have a vibe of, you know, sort of Big Brother is watching and that sort of thing. The weird bird makeup on Perry in practice didn't work, but everything else about this story is just so good, and so grim as well. It's deliciously dark. Syl, the villain in this, probably the last great original villain that was introduced into Doctor Who. I know I'm just gonna get comments about the Candyman or someone like that now, but no, Syl I think probably was. You know, he's weird, he's interesting to look at, the way he talks, his laugh, everything like that. That and the fact that he's a conniving little shit. Yeah, overall this is probably Colin's best story, and I've got to say that it is. Even though, like I say, 2 Doctors could have easily been on here, but that's just my personal opinion. But overall, it's got to be Varos. McCoy is tough as well. It is really tough to decide just one. I mean, there's a case for a few stories. Survival, you could argue. I think Curse of Fenric, you could argue. But I'm gonna go with Ghostlight. And I think the reason why... I'm not going with fucking Ghostlight, don't worry. What the fuck is Ghostlight? It's weird. But no, I'm actually going to go with Remembrance of the Daleks. Now, a while ago, I did put this on a list where I said it was overrated, and the reason why I said it was overrated was because I'd run out of classic series stories, and I know that a lot of people like that one. But it is just a bloody good story. Like, this is pretty much the 25th anniversary of Doctor Who. Not officially, but it should be. I mean, you've got the Daleks in it, you've got Coal Hill School, it's set in 1963, for fuck's sake. You've got Group Captain Gilmore, who I imagine they were trying to sort of be like a pseudo-brigadier type character. And there's also that really cool scene where Ace just batters a Dalek with a bat. What more do you want from a Doctor Who story? Also, the fact that the Doctor essentially commits genocide, that's pretty fucking dark, but it works for his character. People don't really tend to talk about how vicious the 7th Doctor could be, thinking about it. Genocide, really? Even if it is the Daleks. Or the moment where he essentially convinces a Dalek to kill itself, that's pretty grim as well. Satisfying, yet grim. Paul McGann, it's, well, if you're talking about Big Finish, I mean, I could be here for days, but in terms of TV stuff, Night of the Doctor's good. It's great seeing him back for the 50th. He did it really well. No, I really do enjoy it. I know I'm sort of pissing about here, but no, it's actually a very, very good 6 minutes. Better go to the 9th Doctor then. So this again is easy. It's The Empty Child, the Doctor dances. The scariest fucking Doctor Who story for me ever. It's freaked me out so much. The setting is perfect as well. World War II with the gas mask. There's so much imagery there that is just creepy by itself. You put a sci-fi twist on it, just elevates it even further. It introduces us to Captain Jack, who would go on to be probably one of the best creations that the new series ever gave us. And I love how everything in this story is interwoven. Jack being there is actually very essential to the plot. Being in World War II is very essential to the plot. And I know this sort of sounds like a standard thing, like, well, yeah, obviously the setting and certain characters are going to be important to the plot. But it's just how natural it feels, like everything is woven together. The reveal that it's kind of Jack's fault in the first place because he's a con man is so great. It's not only a nice little twist, but it also helps Jack develop as a character. And you know, if he was just a one-off character in a story, it might not have had that much of an impact. But because Jack did go on to be a Doctor Who companion and then go on to Torchwood, it really was the stepping stone for who he would later go on to be. And plus it has an optimistic ending, which I know Moffat fucking loves the optimistic endings. However, this is the one time where I'll say, yep, this one works. Tennant, I'm gonna go with Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. This is again a just brilliant Moffat script. He sets things up for his era. Whether or not they work or not in his era, that doesn't matter. River was great in this. I wanted to know more about her. It's got such an interesting concept as well. The fact that you can pretty much just be eaten by a shadow. The fact that there's two worlds as well. There's like the library and there's the, well, the... what's that world called? You know the one that I mean though, where Donna goes? Where they're saved or whatever. It's creepy, it's dark, and it's full of science fiction. Just excellence. I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't. It's late, I'm tired. But yeah, it's always been a favourite Tennant story of mine. It's probably the one that I rewatch the most. It's just great. For Matt, I really don't know. This is another tough one. I want to say the 11th Hour. I want to say the Time of Angels, but I'm probably going to have to go with Day of the Doctor, and that's kind of unfair on Matt as well. The reason why it's unfair is because it isn't really a story that sort of focuses on him being the Doctor. You've got Tennant in there, you've got John Hurt in there, Tom Baker appears, Capaldi has a cameo, there's all that sort of stuff, but I just can't look over the 50th because of how it made me feel and the cultural impact that it had. You know, this was watched in over like 80 countries at once. You could argue that yes, it celebrates more of the new series than it does of Doctor Who as a whole, but it's just pure nostalgia, and sometimes that's alright. Sometimes it's fine just to look back and celebrate how great Doctor Who was, but it also looks forward to the future as well, and it sets up the whole thing with Gallifrey, which obviously went fucking nowhere. Plus it also introduced us to John Hurt as the Doctor, and I'm still like 5 years later wondering how the fuck that happened. Someone like John Hurt playing the Doctor, that's mental. That's absolutely mental. Plus it brought the Zygons back about fucking time, right? And yeah, just overall, it was worth it. It's satisfying. That was probably the last time that I was so excited for Doctor Who. And then finally for Capaldi, I'm probably gonna have to go with Under the Lake Before the Flood. This is just my favourite Capaldi story. I mean, I would have said Heaven Sent, but then it leads into Hellbent, and you know how I feel about Hellbent. But Under the Lake Before the Flood, I've spoken about it before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's just a really tightly written story that's a base under siege, and the fact that we rarely get base under siege stories now, I mean, it's a miracle that we got one, and it was actually really good. I love the time travel aspect to this. That's the strongest point about it. The fact that the first part takes place in the future, then the second part's in the past, and them being there in the first place is what caused the future. I love stories like that. They're really hard to do as well, so the fact that they managed to sort of set everything up in the first part and then sort of explain how it came to be in the second, it really works. The monster is kind of underused, but who cares? The narrative is good enough. It's the one Capaldi story where I think it's genuinely great from start to finish, and there aren't too many moments where I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake, that was dumb. So yeah, I've got to pick that one. It's easily Capaldi's best. I'm just sad that he didn't get more stories like it. And those are the stories that I think are the best for each of the Doctors thus far. Like I said at the start of this video, I probably will come back and do a whole top 10 for each of the Doctors. Maybe a top 5, because I don't think all the Doctors have 10 episodes. But yes, thank you once again to Harry Brown for suggesting this video. As always, if you want to suggest a video idea to me, then make sure you support me on Patreon, where I will do all the video ideas that you suggest on there. Maybe not exactly right, it just depends how practical they are to do. do. Like, this video could have easily been like 12 different videos. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it. Comment down below what you think as well. Do you think that these are the stories that are the best for each of the doctors? I mean, I imagine some of them won't be, and that's entirely fine. Your opinion is your opinion, mine is mine, and that's how it is. But regardless, let me know. Subscribe for more, and if you do any of those things, I would love you forever. But until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye. I've misplaced something and I can't think where I've put it. Oh. I was looking at it the entire time. That's quite bad.